Okay, we're getting our signatures.
Yeah. Relocating.
Cameras. Okay, cameras are on, mics are on, Chair. Madam Chair.
All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order the Design Review Board meeting for March 5th, 2019. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to start by introducing our staff and board members, and I'll start to my left.
Okay, my name is Bob Buscemi. I'm the city architect. And I'd also like to just make note that Parag Agarwal, who's our new community development director, is in the audience. So he wanted to sit here just to kind of see the meeting and get to know the board.
Great.
Charlie Roberts,
What's your address?
13645 Freemanville Road.
There you go. Reed Casey, Bethany Road.
Tim Bryan, I have a business here in Crabapple.
Laura Weissong, I live in Crooked Creek.
Jeff Dufresne, building a house on Summit Road.
Mike Stevens, I live in White Columns.
Great. So I would like to first start by approval of our agenda. And before I do that, there are some changes I'm going to make to the agenda. So I will need some folks to help me out and make some recommendations here. So first of all, on the after the first demo, I want to move item 6B up to 6A as the first courtesy review. Sorry about that. Before demos, I'm going to really confuse you now. I need to put item 7A for Public Works and Fire Building at Station 43 before demos. So that will be actually item, let's call it
4B.
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 Yep. And the remainder of the courtesy review, so Darby Road will be first, and then we'll follow by V19-001, then V19-003, then V19-004. Under the final reviews, we will now move Birmingham Crossroads LDP as item 7A. Move Town Center East as item 7B. And then Crabapple Market Phase 3, Crabapple Market Phase 1. Those will now become items 7C and D. And the remainder of the agenda will stay. So I need somebody to please make a motion for the modification to the agenda.
I'll make a motion for the modification of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. I would next like to move on to approval of our February meeting minutes. So if somebody could please make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the February meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. All right, so let's start with item 4B, which will be the final review for the Public Works and Fire Building at Station 43.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, good evening. My name is Sarah Leaders. I'm the interim Public Works Director here at the city. And with me tonight is Roddy Moats, our Public Works Manager, and then Chief Robert Edgar, who's our Fire Chief. So we'll be doing the presentation here on the proposed buildings for both Public Works and Fire. So kind of an update on the process as to where we got to where we are tonight. We did a bid back in September for a design build type contract for these structures. We didn't get any responses under that RFP. Typically that type of contract usually starts at a higher dollar figure than our budget allowed. So then we explored the state contract process. We're able to modify our building specs and get the cost down and within budget. So tonight we're here to present to the Design Review Board, have the council work session on March 11th, and then plan to take the construction contract for the buildings for approval on a future council agenda. So looking at the property that these buildings will go on, back in 2007, we had a quitclaim deed from Fulton County for the Birmingham Park property. It was everything except for what's shown kind of in gray on this slide. That was still under the Fulton County facilities and wasn't subject to the restrictive covenants of the Birmingham Park. So the property is still under Fulton County facilities. We have a lease agreement that actually runs out this year where we'll make the final payment and transfer the land over to the city. So this is an aerial showing that blue outline of the facility area as well as the building locations. Then some highlights from the Public Works building. So over the last 12 years, Public Works has been acquiring the equipment, materials needed to maintain our public infrastructure. We have some storage here at City Hall as well as at Bell Memorial Park. None of those are centralized, not able to get all of our signs, materials, everything in one place. And then the facilities we currently have at the Birmingham Park Yard, we have no enclosed facility for maintenance and storage of equipment. The Public Works Yard will need some utilities to support the building, a well, a septic lines, and power for the future building. So here's a rendering of the size of the Public Works building. It's 70 feet wide by 50 feet deep. It's a metal building, and we are working with Bob on selecting a paint color for both buildings. This one's going to have two overhead roll-up doors, a restroom, and a break area. And this is the outside and a picture that just represents what the type of metal building this is going to be. This is, again, the location. The pictures on the left are, the top one is looking from the park access road towards the yard, and the bottom one is in the yard looking out towards the park. So we are looking at doing some additional landscape screening from the park access road. And this shows the proposed location of the building as well as some of the material storage bins that we're going to relocate. And now I'll turn it over to our fire chief to talk about the fire storage building.
Good evening, board members. I'm Bob Edgar. I'm the fire chief here in Milton, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this project to you. Back in 2007, when the city formed and the department formed, we actually inherited all of our fire stations from Fulton County. None of the buildings are City of Milton built and designed at all. So our stations right now, we're sharing all the equipment that we have. We're actually putting them wherever we can find space within the fire station. So we are spread out with all our equipment throughout the city. Our goal here is to bring all that equipment into one location. Not necessarily the fire trucks, but all the accessory equipment that we have. We have some trailers and some air maintenance trailers. So our goal here is to bring those forward and put them all in one location. And we have no space to actually perform any maintenance on our equipment. A lot of that is done on the floor in the engine room where our engines are parked. So it's not the best environment for performing any type of maintenance or work on our equipment. Here's an example of just Station 43. You can see how every space we really have is filled up with something. We've got 2 trailers in there. We've got our Teal Air horse mannequin that we train with. We have weight equipment. We have utility vehicles. We have equipment that is stored right between the vehicles. So when the guys are coming out of the station in the middle of the night and the calls, they have to get onto the truck. And you can see they have to walk around a lot of this stuff because we have no location, permanent location to store those. So our goal is to remove a lot of that equipment and put it into our storage building. Our proposed location is behind Station 43. It's an area which, as Sarah mentioned, is already leased. It's part of the lease agreement with the Fulton County. Come November, we will have made our last payment on that, and that property will then be purchased by the city and owned by the city. The location here you can see is right off Old Bullpen Road, and it gives us direct access off the parking lot behind Station 43 into a wooded area that we can cut an opening into and place that building in there. It will not be visible from the street. The only side you'll see it from is if you're traveling down Old Bullpen, which we don't get a lot of traffic there anyway, other than folks visiting Birmingham Park or our public works staff. And it's about 280 feet from Old Bullpen to the location of where we're going to place that, where we'd like to place that building. Here's a rendering of it, a drawing that was put together, as well as an example of what that building may look like. This picture here was just something we pulled off that we could find that was close to what we were looking to build here. Yeah, and you can see on the other side the proposed storage building. That's where we would hope to place this building. You won't be able to see it from Hickory Flat Road because of all the tree lines, and the only location you would see would be the doorways from the Old Bullpen area, traveling down that roadway there. And that parking lot gives us direct access to backing trailers into the facility as well. So it's actually a perfect location for us. And then also this location is where our support staff is for logistics and support services. So their offices are there, so they'll have direct access to the equipment and supplies that we store there. And we buy a lot of equipment, or not necessarily equipment, but tires for the fire trucks, because we can buy them in bulk and save money. So we buy them, but we have no place to store them. Right now we're storing them in the back of Station 43, which is not ideal again. So our hope is to, with this building, we can store all that equipment there. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief. I had the good fortune of touring your facility in the Citizens Government Academy. I did notice how cramped things were, and I've also seen the facility at Arnold Mill Road. Do you anticipate this structure managing your needs for the long term in terms of storage?
Yes, I do. We have a new facility that's being designed for Highway 9, Station 44, and some of our equipment, our trucks, will be able to be placed over there so we can kind of thin them out right now. I've got 3 pieces of apparatus at Station 41 on Arnold Mill right now. That station is absolutely packed. There's just no room for anybody to move in there. So our goal is to put a reserve truck up at the new station, and that will place some room over in 41, and then we can move 2 of the trailers out of Station 43 on Hickory Flat and put them in the storage building. That'll thin that out a little bit. And then, again, as I said, we can get a lot of the equipment that we have stored in between the trucks there out of there.
Great.
So, Bob, you've been looking at paint colors for these?
I do have some paint colors. So these are basically just general storage buildings. Fire needed one, Public Works needed something. We did a 3,500 square foot building for Public Works. It has 2 bay doors. Go back into it or drive into it. It's not a drive-through building. And we'll be able to store all our snowplow equipment and things that just right now are sitting out, getting weathered. And by the time we need them, there's so much maintenance on them. So I think they're really needed buildings for Public Works and Fire. With the buildings, they're metal buildings. They're Butler-style buildings. It's general storage. But where we place them, there's going to be dense screening, vegetative screening all around. There's existing trees and foliage, and then we're adding more just to make sure. So we snuggle them all in so that nobody would see them either from the park access road or from Hickory Flat. And then from a color standpoint, we're looking at maybe potentially a gray, which I'd like to show you.
Okay. It'll disappear more. It'll kind of blend in.
Yeah. So when we looked at colors, we thought, we looked at all the different colors, but the gray color actually blends the best into the environment. Mm-hmm. Where I thought it would be more of a tan, yes, like a beige, but the beige really is yeah, it pops out and you see it. Better. The gray mm-hmm, really kind of just fades into that landscape. So I think it's a good color selection, but I wanted the board to see it.
Yeah, I like that color.
Mm-hmm. You good with it?
Any other questions from the board? No questions. Any comments from the public?
I'm Scott Reese. I own the property directly across the street from the Hickory Flat Station, cow pasture there. My only comment is in a reflection of Milton's rural heritage. I would like to see a burnt red or a barn red color selected for it. The more of a rural appearance as opposed. I understand the gray, the muted, and it's less obvious, but it's still going to be a metal building. Mm-hmm. And I would rather it look like a barn that was there for 50 or 100 years, and they were typically that, for lack of a better term, burnt red. I think if you look through the color palettes of that baked enamel, you'll find one that closely reflects the color. The closest that I can come up with is the Bice's store red, mm-hmm. And that to me reflects more. I mean, it's going to be a metal building, mm-hmm. But if it looks more like a barn that was there in the past.
So the roof we maintained, the Galvalon.
The roof, yeah, they were always metal.
Keep the wall. They were always right. Metal, so we keep the walls more.
Right, but the typical barns or outbuildings in Milton were either unpainted, faded wood, or that red, and it was a very inexpensive. I guess it was used maybe ochre or the red clay to come up with that color to mix the paint with, and that was kind of the standard building or a outbuilding farm structure when I was a kid growing up in Milton. So that's my 2 cents, and the fact that I am directly across the road with that property kind of, I feel like I have a little bit of a dog in the fight. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Jeff, you have the color chart. Would you like to maybe suggest one to Scott? Scott, would you want to just come back up quick and take a look at this color and see if it's the color you're talking about? I'd like to.
Just the barn red.
Yeah.
You have it?
That's close to.
Just take a quick look. It's worth it. I want you to look at it, make sure you have
the Bice's store, the new.
Did we do that on both?
I would think that's probably the closest. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I don't want the fire engine. That's not nothing against fire engines, but I would think that 484C.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, that's a good color. 44C.
To the board.
Any additional comments from the public? Okay. If there are no additional questions or comments, I think we're ready to take a vote. And so we'd like to do the final vote for the Public Works and Fire Building at Station 43 on 750 Hickory Flat Road. I guess the only addition I would have is for the request for the paint color on the barn red.
I'll make it a burnt red.
The burnt red. So could I have somebody make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve Public Works and Fire Building at Station 43.
I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right.
Reed, you made the motion, and
I
Laura,
second
you
it.
second.
So we are moving on to our demos portion. The first item, item 5A, is the Lakita demo, 305 Darby Road.
Good evening. My name is Randy Matheny. I live at 128 Forester Road in Maysville, Georgia. And we have two items on there tonight. One is 6B as well as the demo. And we have a house there that's been there for years and years. And the people that live in it want to demo it and build a brand new home there. And I think I've turned in pictures of the old house. You can see why it needs to be demoed.
It's rough.
Question, are we combining these two, or are we going to do one at a time?
You're going to do the demo first and then have him stay up and then do the courtesy review. Bob, any comments on?
Well, I think the existing house is in the between the 50 and 75 buffer.
Mm-hmm.
That's, the variance would be to reconstruct the house, the new house,
Correct.
in that same spot. So there's no historic character. It's not on the registry or anything for this building. But I think the connection would be, if we demolish this house, then we'd build another one in its place.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really not disturbing or adding to the impervious area.
Okay. Any questions from the board for the applicant? Any comments from the public? All right, so we'll first take a vote on the demolition of 305 Darby Road.
I'll make a motion to approve the demolition of 305 Darby Road.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. So the next item is a courtesy review. And so just as a reminder on how courtesy reviews work, these are typically zoning issues that will go to another committee. And we only can make recommendations. We do not vote, but we will give you guidance so that when you go to the other board, zoning board, that you will hopefully be prepared. So on that item, which is V19-002, it is to allow a structure to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback.
Yes. What we have is the house that exists now is in that setback. It's in the 50-foot. We even hired an engineer to come in, and we tried every way we could to rearrange it. What happens is, if we get into the 75-foot that the city of Milton requires, the house is going to be built right next to a bank. And I mean, if you build a new house, you wouldn't want your house next to a new bank. So that's the problem we ran into. Because we have a well, and we have to stay 100 foot away from the well, it was really a hard property to work with, but there was already a house there. And we're using the existing septic, so we're not tearing up more on it. But we're asking for that 25-foot buffer to be taken away so we can build the house. We're building pretty close to the same footprint. It's just it's a little larger home than what's there now.
Are there any questions for the applicant? Bob?
Just the time frame between the demo and when you're proposing to build a new house?
We're not going to demo until we get the permission to build the home.
To build a new house.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past where you demo a house and then, whoops, you can't do that. And so we're hoping that we can go ahead to the 19th and we get approved for the variance, and then we'll go on and start demoing then, if you approve it, which you already have.
And you realize where you're positioning the house, it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to put a pool in. So you're okay with that too, right?
Oh, I don't think they want a pool.
Okay, they don't
I think they
want a pool. Just wanna
understand
make sure.
that there's no room to put a pool.
Yeah, okay, just want to make sure you're okay with that.
We fought with this lot for a pretty
Long
good
time.
while with the engineers, so
Okay.
they're aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because we run into those issues where folks try and come back, and
I understand.
there's hurdles to cross over,
I understand.
unfortunately.
I think they need to find a community pool, is what you're saying. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Any other
How
questions?
much larger of a footprint are you planning to build on here?
I haven't got the plans in front of me. It's going to be it's not a lot. We're talking 10 foot, in one direction. If I remember when we were going over it, the footprint is fairly close. It's just, it did go over a little bit more. It's hard to build perfectly in the same footprint.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It calls out for a basement, and I went out to look at this, and it's a flat piece of ground with an immediate drop off to this creek. How are you going to build a basement here?
I know that we've had our people from South, and we have experienced home builders that go out there and do the survey of what they need to do with the lot. And I'm not real apt to that, but I know that if they said they can do it, I've been working with this company for 12 years, and they usually get things just right. They build a lot of houses.
Because that would impact the impervious surface more, trying to build a basement, because it's, again, sitting in the buffer now, on the 50-foot, and it was perfectly flat along there as I drove in the driveway and looked at it.
Right.
So you just might ask them that. I don't see
Okay.
how they can do a basement on this lot. I'm a builder.
Are you?
Not as good as they are, but
Well, I don't know. I'm sure you were.
So-
like I said, they've done this, and they really do research these things and go over it with the customers, what they can do, what they can't do. I have all the assurances if they say they can do it, they can do it. Of course, like I said, I've been with them 12 years, and they usually hit it just right.
And if you're using the existing septic, are you increasing the number of bedrooms? Because it's a one-story house now, and you're going to a two-story with a basement. So I was wondering if that existing septic, and it isn't an acre. and
Yes,
it's
sir.
kind
We
of a
went.
hard- can
We
I-
went. Already have our environmental health.
Oh, you've already got that for this
Yes, sir.
new
We've
house?
already got that. Let me see if I can find it in here. I got a plethora of papers. We already have the septic, and
It looks like they proposed a new septic, correct?
I think you're showing proposed.
Yeah, there's,
Here.
they evaluated it for the bedrooms that we asked for.
Well, if you've got it approved, that was just a concern, because it's under an acre.
That's probably.
Right, and
And if you've gotten it approved, then no problem.
yes, we did that first.
25 feet. I'm guessing. So by the time you draw that
So, but the concern, because this is a courtesy, so the real concern from the board would be the amount of disturbance that we're creating in that buffer due to the basement, right?
There's really not much of an area for the house to go with the building setback line on the left side, which doesn't show, probably 25 feet or so. Really not much of an area left, so this one really is a hardship. So-
I think so.
And that's what they have to prove,
yeah.
Yeah,
hardship.
okay. But it's the amount of disturbance with the basement that I think would be the concern.
But I agree with Tim, it is a hardship. This is the only place it can go.
Yeah.
And if it's
And you've owned the property before there was a 75?
I'm sorry.
You've owned the property before there was a 75-foot line there? I mean, there wasn't, you're going over the 75-foot line.
Well, see, it was a 50-foot buffer. It's always been, that's state.
Right.
And, of course, Milton added
the
25
75,
onto it.
yep.
So obviously, this home was built a
Before.
long time before Milton was
That is
around.
correct.
So they were in the 50-foot buffer.
They really do have a good hardship case here.
Yeah, I mean, it was an existing
Yeah.
one.
Any other questions or comments for the applicant? Good luck.
Okay, thank you. So everything's okay, or?
Yeah, we just make comments for the other board, and so we will denote those 2 comments that were made,
Okay,
and that's all we can do at this point. So
Gotcha.
give you any guidance for when you go, but I think as we're all saying, it looks like it's a hardship due to the lot size. You're pretty restricted.
yes,
So
yes, ma'am.
we
Yes,
would-
ma'am. Thank y'all very much, every one of you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
You do have to appear at the 19th, the BZA
Yes,
meeting.
yes.
It's at 7 PM. Okay.
Our next item on the agenda is a courtesy review for V19-001. That's 13725 Providence Road.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Brumberlow Reese and Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia 30004. I'm here tonight representing John Gaston with Crabapple Ventures and his application to remodel and add on to an existing house on his property there on Providence Road. So, we've got a early 1960s brick ranch that was constructed prior to any buffers along streams. So he wants to remodel that house and make some additions. I came before you, I guess, last month and obtained a demolition permit for certain outbuildings and structures there on the property. So in this particular case, we're subtracting impervious area and adding impervious area, and we're coming up with a net loss in the amount of impervious. So there's a paved driveway that's accessing the basement end of the house. We're going to substitute that for a pervious surface. There's a barn-like structure in the back and another shed, and those are both in the area. So we've got about 1,700 square feet of impervious that we're removing, and then we're adding or proposing to add about 1,200 square feet. So the buffer was compromised some 50, 60 years ago when this was constructed. So we feel like the buffer was compromised, so it really doesn't actually exist. And we're proposing to try to remodel and add on to this house in that area. So that is where we're at, and we would suggest any comments or anything that we could make it better. We realize this is a what I want plan, and that certain things may not go, but this is. I have always instructed my clients that it's best to let's not come back a year later and say, oh, by the way, I really wanted a pool or I really wanted something else. So I try to get them to put everything down that they want, and then it's up. There's no hidden agendas or anything like that. So that's what we've done, and so I will look forward to any suggestions, and then we will try to incorporate those or work with them for the BZA.
So you're coming in for the house and the pool, or just the house?
Well, no,
You're showing
before we're going before the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes,
I want everything.
everything in there.
Yes, like I said, if this is what he's purchased the property, was his dream build. So we're going for, and the standard or what we're working for is, The reason for the buffers and impervious area was the maintenance of the clean water. And if we're in effect reducing the amount of impervious with the new build out, we feel like that we are not negatively affecting the clean water, because the filtering through the pervious soils is what cleans the stormwater. So we're reducing the amount of impervious with the demolitions.
Scott, I saw the property, beautiful property, daffodils.
Yeah, the original owner, Captain Lipscomb, he was a U.S. Navy captain, retired there, and he was a amateur arborist and horticulturist. So if you walk the property, there are little sign placards where he had planted different flowers and bushes and trees where he identified them. And he had built cascades in the stream. It's a very beautiful home site, and that's why you purchase and you want to stay on that stream bank.
Yeah, some of them are kind of precious, but when I was driving westbound on Providence Road, taking a right into Cowett, I had to slow down almost to a stop and kind of veer into the oncoming lane from Cowett that was exiting, to Providence Road, just because of that tight hairpin turn for the new driveway. Is that?
Well, we know that new construction will have to meet with Roddy Moats and work out any driveway. The problem on Providence Road, if you pull out there, is sight distance, because as you're coming from the four-way intersection, there's a hill or a hump, and then we're down where the stream crosses in the hole, and then as you go out past Cowart Road in front of the school, we have another one. So trying to find the safest place to come out, and it is Cowart Road. We feel like if we end up putting a drive there, we're probably going to have to do some widening in that intersection with the driveway. The Milton standard is the concrete apron with the flares and working there. But we do have to meet sight distance requirements on that. And from a visual standpoint, walking through there and taking a few shots, that we feel like is the safest pullout in there, other than a section across the creek, which doesn't really work for this house.
Okay.
But that will be addressed with Public Works at the time of construction.
Real quick, I agree, just in the notes with Jeff, I went out there too, that's a very dangerous for the neighbors and for people in Providence, and the school buses line up there in the evening.
The Cowart Road intersection?
Mm-hmm. The school buses are there.
Yeah.
So I would just ask that really be looked at. It's a very unsafe, I would be surprised if the traffic folks approve this intersection. So that was one of my notes too. I want to add to Jeff's good comments.
Right. We're fully aware that before the driveway is permitted, we'll have to go through that with Public Works.
And then there's actually 2 driveways out here. Are both of those coming out under your plan?
Depends upon where we get permitted. No, the one that's closest to the stream will be changed from a impervious surface to a pervious surface to gain access to the lower level of the house.
And so the little short one will come out?
Completely be gone.
Because again, that's dangerous on Providence with 2 driveways.
It's trying to pull out there. I'm lucky enough to have a truck with high clearance so I can see, but a standard car with a 3.5 foot line of sight, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Scott, can I ask, you have several wells on the property? So where were you proposing to put the septic?
Once again, there's an existing septic field that was Short history of this property, the interim buyer between Captain Lipscomb and Crabapple Ventures was a kennel/dog boarding facility. And the amount of water and problems with septic that if you've ever dealt with any grooming facilities that we have in the past with kennels, they are anathema to septic fields. Yeah. So there's a brand new septic field out there, and we have met with Fulton County Health Department, and it has been approved for this proposed house. And if you'll notice, it is across the stream. You'll see a storm or a sewer pipe and a pump station and all shown on your plan. But it already have Fulton County Health Department approval.
Okay, so what's shown will be reutilized?
Yes,
that's what's there.
that is correct.
So
now
no
we will
further disturbance in the buffer.
Right.
Is the key.
So, and the area, if you're looking at your plan to your left, is where we're proposing a reserve. If that system were to fail, but that's part of the standards with the health department. Is I don't just have to show an initial; I have to show a reserve for a fail safe.
Okay. So,
and it would be completely outside the buffer.
So just so the board knows, it looks like where the existing residence is, they'll be remodeling that and reconstructing that area, so that's going to stay. There isn't a house addition that's only in the 75, between the 75 and 50. The pool is in the 50, but everything else is out of the 50 zone except for what the existing house is, which he's just going to rebuild remodel the existing.
Yeah, on the
Probably
existing
take most
footprint.
of it down. The walls are worth, everything is going to come down, and he'll just rebuild it from the foundation up.
But it'll be the same footprint.
But it'll be the same footprint. Which,
I will say that I've walked this property several times and actually shown it to a few buyers as it'll be for sale, so just let the public know that. There's really not much else you could do here. It actually will be a major improvement, at least from the plans that I've seen from what the house is now.
Any other comments or questions? Nope. Any comments from the public? No. I think that's about it from us. I mean,
thank you.
It's a nice property. Moving on to item V19-003, address is 622 North Main Street. Request is to increase the maximum number of wall signs to 3.
Good evening. My name is George Laycock. I'm at 15 Boones Ridge Parkway, Ackworth, Georgia. This is CubeSmart that's been under construction and we're nearing completion. The first thing I'd like to mention is I'm unclear on why this is necessary. We meet the sign requirements for a single sign with what we're proposing. But the way the lettering is set up, as you probably can see, part of the lettering is on stucco and part of it's on brick. If you form a rectangle around the perimeter, the large perimeter, the two signs there, the two rows of text, we're under 100 square feet, which is the maximum allowed. So that's a bit confusing on my part. I would like to think I don't have to go through this process.
So let me explain to the applicant. So the code requires a maximum number of signs. He's allowed 2 signs total, 1 per face. And in his particular case, the way the building was designed, this is the self-storage that's on Highway 9 that's under construction currently. And the way it was designed, there was a stucco elevation plane, and then there was a brick plane immediately under that, so it projects out 4 inches for the thickness of the brick. And the applicant wants to put basically 2 signs on that facade. If you were to put 1 sign, it is correct, and that's why we're supporting it from the staff perspective. If you put 1 sign up, it would meet the total sign area criteria. But we want to break the signs up, which I totally support, to break the signs up so that one's on the brick and one's on the stucco. So the total accumulation of the area would meet the code, but because we're breaking them up, we really have a total of 3 signs and not 2 signs. But it is something that staff would support because of that. The building is coming out very nice, George.
Thank you.
It looks beautiful. You did a nice job on it.
Thank you.
And
Those look good.
so, and we don't get involved with content, but basically, one says the name of the facility, and the other one underneath, he just wants it to say that it's air-conditioned space, which was important to his business model. So, yeah, staff will be supporting this. Just
Yeah, I don't have any issues with it. Any comments or questions from the board for the applicant? Any comments from the public? Yeah, I would say I personally, since I'm down this area quite a bit, I mean, I think those look fine, and your building does look great.
Thank you.
It's really coming along quite nicely. So I'm definitely in support of it. It sounds like the rest of the board is as well.
Definitely.
Okay.
Good luck.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right. Our next review is item V19-004, 2420 Saddle Springs Drive. This is to allow a septic system to encroach into the 75-foot impervious setback.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Scott Reese with Barmelo Reese & Associates, doing business at 13685 Highway 9, Milton, Georgia, 30004. I'm here tonight representing Ms. Michelle Sedgwick in her application to subdivide her property, build a new smaller residence, and in the process of that, we have discovered that we cannot fit the proposed residence and the initial and reserved septic field in the parameters without encroaching into the 75-foot impervious setback. Milton has a different interpretation than any other municipality or county that I deal with, in that they regulate or not, no, that is the wrong term because it is out of their purview of regulation. That is only allowed by the health department in the particular county to regulate septic field. But they have decided that they want to keep septic fields out of the 75-foot impervious setback. So Ms. Sedgwick has been at the property since 1992. She has a 5,000 square foot, 5-bedroom house that she no longer has any need or desire for. She's at the point in her life where it's really just her there. She wants a small house in the woods. She has a 3+ acre lot in Sunnybrook Farms. The subdivision was developed under the guidelines of a 25-foot stream buffer and no setback requirements. And Fulton County, they go by the state standards and county standards of a 50-foot setback for septic, as was shown on your previous variance request on Drb Road. I notice it only has a 50-foot setback and not a 75-foot setback for the septic system. So anyway, so that's where we're at. We went in, did all the surveying, engineering. It is a tough lot, but she has been in the neighborhood, like I said, since 1992. It is very dear to her heart to stay in the neighborhood. We spent over a year looking in the general area for her to find another wooded lot outside of the HOA requirements and covenants have lapsed in Sunnybrook Farms. So she did not want to be in a subdivision per se. Sunnybrook Farms, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's subdivision living where you're not really in a subdivision. So the houses are typically back from the road and on larger lots, acre-plus lots. So after a lot of time and effort, we have designed or had a house designed that meets all the criteria. We've gone through with a hydrologist to be able to cross the stream, contacted the state DNR, They are allowed the stream crossing. So everything works except for that. I have health department approval, like I say, and I provided you with the regulations from both the state and the Fulton County that they allow septic systems up to 50 feet. That more than adequately cleans any effluent before it goes to. So this is kind of an anomaly where we're working for this, the reserve septic system may never ever be built, but we have to work with that. So that's where we're at. She is a longtime member of the community, and she really wants to put her dream house in the woods. So we've done everything we can to make it work, and that's where we're at. We can get everything except a portion of the septic system that would be in the impervious setback. So any questions, I would be glad to try to answer them.
I just want to remind the board that when people do work in this 75-foot setback area, even if the variance is granted, staff is still going to have a whole bunch of requirements, BMPs and silt fencing and all sorts of things that they always comply with. So I just want everybody to know and remind everybody that even when it's approved, there are a lot of staff comments and requirements that, to protect the streams and make sure
we
everything
realize
works.
working inside that setback that there are special rules.
Yeah.
All your silt fence is doubled, your BMPs in effect, which are best management practices for erosion control, are at a higher standard. Your allowed time of exposed soil without grassing and mulching shrinks. So understand that and realize too that only the initial septic system would be put in. You've got and the reserve has to be larger because of the fact that if a catastrophe happens. So what you see there is going to be less than half of what will initially be put in. And like Bob was saying, we realize that it will be under a tighter window of operation than just a standard outside the setback. And we are proposing the most pervious system. We will enhance the permeability of the soil in this area inside an impervious setback. So we're not proposing a impervious section or a system that would increase the runoff. We're going to be going in and manipulating the soil where it will soak in more rainwater.
There's a lot of standards that go with it. Any house drains that are near it would go into flow wells. And I mean, it's just, we do take extra precaution when we're doing this. So. And it's only the primary that really would show the disturbance. So Scott's got it by law show the secondary,
Right.
but that's the darker ones.
The last
primary is really what they're really going to disturb.
The last thing anyone ever wants to do is condemn a house because there's not room for a secondary system. So the secondary system has to be designed and it has to be oversized just for.
Just in case. That's a Fulton County.
Yes.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant?
I think this one's a real hardship too.
Yeah,
So this one gets my approval.
yeah, does me too. I mean, it's a tough piece of property and a good owner. Any comments from the public regarding this applicant? Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move back through some additional final reviews. The first one that we're going to look at is the Crabapple Market Phase 3 LDP and Architecture.
We changed it to the 7A now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Crossroads.
Confusing myself. I'm sorry. The first item is Birmingham Crossroads LDP 15755 Birmingham Highway. Final site review. Thank you.
And by the way, I just want you to know I put the presentation on.
Okay.
For the, yeah, I put the presentation is already loaded. If you want, I'll show you where it is.
Sure, I've got the right
Excuse me,
one.
Chris, I don't want to load it.
Yes. This is E.
Did you get the
Over here.
dumpster enclosure stuff? We can do that when we do the bill.
No, we'll do that with the building. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so just when you're ready, this will be the, and I'm going to turn around.
Okay,
Cameras. When you're ready.
okay. So you,
This is just the lake
okay,
area I wanted you, we had the PowerPoint I wanted you to show.
okay. Okay. Good evening. I'm Tad Brazel, Oak All Companies, 5256 Peachtree Road. We purchased this property in 2016 and have been working towards a land disturbance permit since then. The property, we have DOT approval for the entrances and Fulton County approval for the entrance on Birmingham Road. I'm familiar, I guess everybody's familiar with the property. It's across from the Publix at the intersection of Birmingham Highway and Birmingham Road. We have Georgia DOT approval for the entrances on Birmingham Highway. We have Fulton County water and sewer approval. Portion of the property is served by the private treatment plant across the street, and a portion of the property is served by septic. We have Fulton County Health Department's approval on the septic layout on the 10 estate lots. This has been reviewed extensively by staff, but there's some special things about the property that we've agreed to do. We've worked with Bob on the detention ponds. So can you see the presentation? So what we've worked towards on the detention ponds is to make the area there along Birmingham Highway more of a park area than just a dry detention pond with screening around it. And we broke it up into two ponds. The upper pond will be about 2 feet higher than the lower pond, and then the water when it rains, it will flow over under the bridge there and into the lower pond, and then from the lower pond it exits out. This is an overall picture of the entire site. These are old. This still gives you but you need to refer to the site plan because there's a change. The retail building along Birmingham Road is no longer there, but this will give you a good feel for the way the overall site lays there. If you look at the approved site plan, that retail building is gone, and there's two more residential lots up on Birmingham Road. This gives you a view of the bridge, the boardwalk, and the trees that go through between the two ponds. This is the park area with the mail kiosk and a little seating area and a green for the residents. This is another view of the little seating area. There's a little seating wall there in a paver area. This is the mail kiosk. Again, along Birmingham Road up here in the front, there's the park on the left-hand side will stay the same. On the right-hand side, if you look in your package, there's a green space along Birmingham Road, and then there's two lots back behind that. This is concepts of the signage. We'll have to come back and get the signage approved at a later date. That's another view of the park area that's called, and it's labeled and it's required in the zoning, and it's labeled as the Village Green area. And that is actually, if you look at the overall site plan and the green space requirement, that is not included in the green space requirement. That's just a little park, a bench area, more signage concepts. That's the entrance between the two buildings. We have the building on the top of the page there is a pediatrician is going to purchase that from us and build a building there. There'll be a pediatrician half the site and a pediatric dentist taking up part of that building. That's a view of that entrance coming in. That's the cul-de-sac and the trails that go down behind some of the estate lots. Again, just the cul-de-sac and the plantings and we've, to meet the tree protection ordinance, the tree plantings on this site are pretty extensive. That's an entrance into the trail. That's an overall view of the parks again. This you can sort of see if you look at the way the topo is in the back, that this site steps down from the substation on the northern side, and it steps down towards Birmingham Highway. We have 3 different type of housing units we'll have. There's a ranch product that'll be on a single story. There's if you look at this slide, the lots on the right-hand side, those will be 3 stories in the rear. That's a drive-under product that's fed by the alley, and it'll be 2 stories in the front. And then the other side of the road going to the residential will be 2 stories in the front, 3 stories in the back. It's a lot like the product that's built at Crabapple Station across the street. It's over by the lake. We developed that back in 2004, I think. But that's sort of, we're trying to work with the topo and design houses that really work with the land. That's an overall, you can see the way the topo is and it works for them. So that's what Bob has in his presentation, and you have the site plan with you. We worked really hard with Bob to get the ponds to look the way they are, to get them to really be a feature up on the road instead of an eyesore. And then we worked a lot with the staff on getting the site plan exactly the way that it meets all the zoning codes, it meets all the green space requirements, and that's sort of it in a nutshell. I have the engineers here if you have any questions upon the hydrology or site engineering questions. He's here to answer any of those.
Question? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I just wanted to give the board some history. I mean, this site has had quite a bit of history, actually. Dates way back, and it's been in front of council several times. And what you're seeing here is the final LDP that is required to come back to DRB for approval. But it does represent all the comments that council had and that were previous conditions and new conditions that they've placed on the property. There's been an extensive amount of public input on this property. There are a lot of features to it. We put in variable lot sizes. They wanted commercial up along Birmingham Highway, and actually next month, I believe, the applicant is looking to put a building in front of the board for the first commercial building, which is the pediatrician, I'm assuming. We did turn the park, the pond into a park. All the open space is going to be placed in a conservation easement,
Right.
So that it will stay for perpetuity, which is important. The part on the north side is in MIX zoning. There's been a lot of interest on that little corner piece, but nothing has formally come in yet. But I'm hoping to see that eventually get developed as well, or whatever happens to that piece. Maybe it never gets developed, who knows? But I mean, it is another piece that's there. And then you have the 1 acre lots along the back, and we've added trails, soft trails through there with trailheads and whatnot, so that trail markers and things like that, so that you can really utilize this. And it's all open to the public, and that's the key, that the public would be allowed to use this. So I just wanted you to get an idea of what we would and how they were laying it out and some of the history behind this site, because there's quite a bit here.
It's great that you have tenants in mind for the medical building. What type of commercial tenants do you envision for the commercial building?
Because we're very limited in the amount of septic capacity that we have, it'll probably be more office space. What I'm hoping is that we could get I'd love to get a little ice cream shop. And I think that what I want to do is work with, because those ice cream shops really don't use as much water as the code says that a restaurant needs. You got to have so many gallons per seat. But if we could find the right shop that had 2 other locations and we could get water bills from them and show sort of typical usage, I think I could get that in there. But otherwise, it will probably be other, office / retail uses.
So Jeff, what the code requires on an MIAC zoning is 3 uses.
We have to have
So-
some retail in there.
So he has to have, there's got to be 3 different uses. So the residential's a 1, then he's got the medical office, which would be 2. So probably the third one, he has to get some sort of a retail in there to meet the requirement of the third. So I don't know exactly to what extent. The code doesn't require sizes on those uses, just 3 uses.
As a pediatric dentist, we were trying to get a candy store.
That's an oxymoron.
I have a question. The road onto Birmingham Road, does that come between the cell phone tower and the electric substation?
Yes. So if you look at this slide, the substation is at the bottom of the property. And the houses that front there, those big long ranch homes, those sit about 8 feet below grade. So the substation, so those houses will be about 8 feet below, and then we have that row of evergreen trees at the top. So they'll be very well buffered from the substation is very well buffered from our property. In the cell tower is just, it's there. You can't do anything about it.
So the code required a 10-foot landscape strip along that property line?
With the electric plant or like the substation?
The substation, yes.
And then I'm looking at satellite image right now that there's a building in the way. Is that building still there? That's
No,
torn down?
we came in front of you about a year ago and got a demo permit
That's gone.
approved to tear those buildings. There was a little house and then that Butler building there.
Got it.
You have a beautiful plant schedule.
Yes, it's extensive.
You got pretty much everything, all the major food groups in there.
Yes.
Difficult corner, commercial corner. I think you've done a great job. It's mostly residential at a high visibility corner, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully it continues to improve that little corner there and get more traffic there. That's great. More
These townhomes haven't been in front of us yet, have they?
These what?
The townhouses?
There's no townhouses anymore.
Oh, there's no attached product?
Reed, these are all single-family detached product. There are no townhouses being proposed.
It's 25 cluster homes and then 10 estate lots.
And I will
And then
say
roughly
that-
17,000 square feet of commercial / retail space.
Yeah, and the way the plan was approved, I mean, there's several conditions on the way the houses look from an architectural standard. So, and Lou Oliver, at that time, Lou Oliver actually helped us create all those and write up all those conditions. So, and there's photos and examples on the conditions and whatnot, so
We want to keep true to the area, be that real
We'll be-
farmhouse look.
staff will be ensuring that everything is meeting those conditions.
Is the state and the city working all on that intersection yet, though, of Birmingham and Birmingham? I mean, right now it's backed up to Freemanville Road, for an hour and a half in the afternoon anyway.
Yeah.
No plans?
I'd have to check with Sarah Leaders, who I think has left, but I know there's been some talk about potentially maybe putting a roundabout, but nothing has, it's a state,
The bad news
it's a
is the
state highway. and
It's a 3-year.
Honestly, we have seen nothing, so I don't want
It's a
to,
3-year project, unfortunately,
I
to
don't
get the
want to
state
spread
to do
rumors
anything.
that we're putting something
Or
in that
4-year.
maybe never happened, so. I mean, it looks like it could warrant one, but until it's officially submitted, I wouldn't want to speculate.
I'd make a motion to approve as submitted.
Before we do that, I just need to, any comments from the public? All right, no additional questions from the board. All right, you may make a motion.
I make a motion to approve as submitted.
And I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right. Our next item on the agenda is for a final approval, on Town Center East, 850 Mayfield Road. I love this property. just going to be so nice. I remember when, yeah, it will be, yeah. Remember when they first came in with that?
Yes. And do you need easels?
That's great. That's a great house. It's sad they can do some of it over there. Other side of the creek. Yeah, over the creek.
Yeah, I wish that the whole house would just be on the other side of the creek. That would be like a lawn, more or less, on the other side of where the road is, but
Bridge the creek.
yeah, it would be a lot.
And that pool, even though it's in a buffer, normally a buffer kind of a pit downhill where that pool is sitting way up high. Look how.
It's going to be pretty.
Yeah, because it's sitting so high.
His house design is pretty.
Yeah, I thought the pool was going to be a wow factor.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's good.
Need some help there, Bob?
It's gonna be fine.
Wrestling with that thing.
Good afternoon. I'm the architect for the project John Gadsden's building, the Town Center East. We've been through the DRB when it was a little bigger and got approved, I think, in a 2-round process. We're moving forward with the building phase 1. Stayed pretty much in character. We developed it a little bit more authentic. Our theme is kind of like an old mill building, and to do it in a kind of a modern way. But it has a lot of authentic touches to it. And the material, we've updated a few of the materials. We're going to have more stained wood on it than our previous scheme. And kind of a rusticated look to the brick. We're going to turn some of the brick perpendicular so it looks like a load-bearing masonry wall. And it's continuing to evolve, but it's only going to get better. I can't tell you this is final. We met with it last night. Any questions?
So just some history here. This building did come before the board a little while back for a courtesy review, and we looked at it, and then he's further developed it, pretty much keeping in with what he originally presented. He added some wood lintels and made the brackets wood. So what you're seeing on those porches is, if you go down Broadwell, the buildings on the right,
The Bay O'Hare Studio,
is
vintage
the
pizza.
same style. Mr. Gaston actually owned part of those and just recently sold them, and now is looking to construct this building here.
Yeah, John did the first phase after we finished the master plan for this area.
Right.
Bill, what's the material in the upper right?
This right here?
Mm-hmm. It's hardy plank.
It's a hardy plank to look like a cedar shingle. It's only up in this area, And the color is more like this one down here.
Got it.
The pattern is like a cedar shape.
I like that brick.
Yeah, too.
Different looking.
Pretty, very pretty.
The brick was designed to make it look like an old mill.
Yeah.
So we're trying to keep it like a hand-formed brick and trying to keep the color and texture so that it mimics the old mill type of buildings. The project was in front of you last month for the LDP, and we got that through, and so now we're looking to do this. There'd be retail on the ground floor, offices on floors 2 and 3, and the dormers you're seeing up on top would just give more vaulted space to the 3rd floor.
So there's no residential on this, or is there?
No, there was at one time, but there's
Yeah,
no residential at all.
I remember that.
probably,
Yeah, the original one had the residential on
The
it.
building
It was
stayed
a
the
while.
same, but the uses kept evolving, but it's settled now. It's
Okay.
office and retail on the bottom.
Okay.
What's the material of the garage doors in the back?
It's going to look like the finished wood that we have right here.
But it's metal doors with a painted, is that what it is? Is it a metal door that is painted?
Oh, you can get them a lot of different ways. You can get them vinyl clad that looks like wood. You can get them actual wood. But that's the style we want it to look like. And they're covered, so we actually could do wood back there because we have like you've seen a lot of old mill buildings. We have like a 20-foot metal roof that's out in front of the garage door. So you can actually park a car outside under cover and then park a car in the garage.
So there's a full bay or a full parking space under that cover?
Yeah, like tandem parking, but we're not counting any of that parking towards our requirements. They're just kind of luxury parking for the tenants.
Are there any questions from the board for the applicant?
This one looks great.
Yeah, it does. It's gorgeous. Any comments from the public? If we're ready, somebody can make an motion for an approval.
I move to approve the Town Center East at 850 Mayfield Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're very excited.
Yeah, it
about
looks great. It's beautiful.
Sarah, can you, is there a way you can leave the rendering? Can you leave some of this stuff so I can photo this one? I think is a photo.
The next item on the agenda is Crab Apple Market Phase 3, LDP and Architecture.
Phase 1 first or Phase 3?
I think we're doing Phase 3.
Oh, thanks. You going to put something up on the easel or no? Not on the easel, all right, so let me just get you back.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair, Chairman and Board. Adam Orkin, 760 Fox Hollow Run, Milton, 30004. We've got the whole team here. We've got Chuck O'Brien, who will give the presentation. We also have Terry Herr in the background. We have Kyle Horde on the architectural side. We have Jennifer Sprayberry of AEC that will help with any engineering questions when we get to the LDP parts of these of all the phases, and Jesse Myrick. And then I've got my team in the back, John Nicholson and Josh Barnes, if there's any further questions. So we're going to let Chuck run it, and however y'all want to take it as we get through the LDP, we'll be happy to run it as detailed or as not that you would like.
Thank you. I'm Charles O'Brien with Piper O'Brien Architects, 3000 Royal Boulevard South, Alpharetta, Georgia. Bob, I have a presentation.
You have a presentation?
Yes, sir. This presentation is the same as your book. It matches. The cover page of this book actually is a great representation. It really organizes the project for us pretty well. On the left of the image here are the three buildings of the five that we looked at the last time, at the last meeting we were at. We'll look at those again coming up here in another agenda item. But the six buildings in the foreground really demonstrates pretty nicely how they're a collection of buildings. It really is a bit of a town. It's an eclectic mix to some degree, but it's within the same sort of family. But they all work together to hide a little parking deck there in the center. So we'll look at more detail about that in just a second, but this gives a good overview. The table of contents, we flip the page, the table of contents is no big deal, but the materials legend is pretty important, where we have a collection of brick that is a variety of colors and textures, and a standing seam metal roof, and also a stone material in there that's used on one building, and a variety of paint colors that we'll be using for trim. Each of the renderings will depict where those different materials are located. The next page, we have a site map, a location map. This is the westernmost parcels of Crabapple Market. And then the actual site plan itself, again, shows how the six buildings that we're going to talk about today, starting with Building F, and we'll work in a clockwise fashion to go around the block here and look at each building independently. But you also see here that this is the parking deck in the center. It's just a one-level parking deck that's accessed, if you see the cursor here, off of a Heritage Walk up to the upper level. And then the lower level is accessed off of Itasca Walk. There's plenty of space between the buildings for people that park to be able to get out of their cars, get back out onto the main streets. That was intentional. The other thing to note here is on Building H and I, they're positioned in such a way that they're symmetrical about the roundabout, with buildings that we looked at last month being L and M, such that they present themselves to the roundabout in a symmetrical sort of fashion. So it creates a gateway into the Crabapple Market. We'll flip the page onto Building F, the first of the buildings. This is a three-story building. It's anchoring the corner of Crabapple here in the foreground and Itasca at the edge. The building that's not shown here off on the distance would be a building that's already existing. It's the three-story building that was just completed from a construction perspective not that long ago. What we have here are three generous-sized arched windows that extend for 2 stories with a generous cornice, and then individual windows that highlight the 3rd story. There's also chamfered elements here at the corners. And then there's also, from a lighting perspective, we have up and down lighting here to really highlight the pilasters. And then on the left side here, this also depicts pretty well how you would access this building for the upper floors. So not unlike they have now on Crabapple Market, where they have the elevator and stair tower. That's how you would get and access these upper floors of these buildings. We'll just go through it quickly, and then we can come back and ask questions if we need to. Building G, as we move further up Crabapple towards the roundabout, we have a 2-story building here. We have a large featured arcade element in the center with 2 flanking wings. The arches are generous in size across the bottom, with individual windows on that 2nd floor. The thing to highlight here on the elevations, north and south, are these this opening that goes through, and that extends through into the parking area. So it gives good access from when you do park. You could come through this little arcade. Inside that arcade would be a storefront and doors to access the tenants. In this case, lighting is at the center feature element is an up and down sort of lighting. And then on the wings, it's a featured element where it's a sconce that's highlighted on each pilaster. At the roundabout itself, the buildings H and then the upcoming building I are really the same buildings. They're mirror images of one another. It's an industrial vernacular, rural vernacular that has a gable end. It really presents itself well to the roundabout. It's a rustic brick it's a story and a half in height, so it's a single story, but it's taller than it is wide, so that creates a better presence at that roundabout. These buildings are positioned in such a way that they have a nice plaza element in the foreground as well as between the buildings. And then in between those buildings, we have the string lights. This is building I. It's really the same as the previous building we looked at, with one exception. We have a rooftop dining opportunity on that one, where we have a small stair. You can't even see it in this image. It's really between the two buildings. This building has a barn-type light. It's a down light, and then a couple of lights here that highlight the front entrance for each of these buildings. The next image, building J. It's again a central element. In this case, it's a gable-ended feature. It gives a great opportunity for signage, but then it also has two wings that are symmetrical, left and right, and those are organized in such a way to really kind of bend itself around the turn. This is a Heritage Walk in the foreground here, and Heritage Walk curves at this point. Again, barn lights, and then some sconce fixtures that highlight the entrance. And then we've just about completed the tour around the block here. So building K, again, arched windows, a significant cornice at the top here. The lighting was handled a little bit differently here. We have down lights at the canopy along Heritage Walk, but then along Itasca, we've highlighted the entrance with just some sconce fixtures. Those are coming up at the end. And then across the building we were just looking at here is in the distance. This building is a storage building. It's positioned at the end of the run of parking that's existing now. The parking is. This building has barn lights and really just one operable door, but the rest of the articulation would be such that it would match those doors and really look like it's doors on all sides, but would really just be one operable door. And then we always got to end on the dumpster enclosure, it seems like. So we have a dumpster enclosure here on the left with steel doors that close that up, and then the selection of lighting on the right side.
So just to fill the board in, I mean, we've been working with this applicant weekly for many months to really look at this, because it is the development of our downtown, and this is a big part of it. So with the existing buildings that are there now, that we completed last year, those are 3 stories. So you'll notice that the buildings now go from a scale of 3 down to 2, down to 1. So we're breaking the scale down as we get closer to the residential. As you go back onto Heritage, that building also is a 1-story building. So that, actually, the residentials on the other side of the street are actually have more floors than this building would. So, but we didn't want to overpower them or overtake that. There's pedestrian access points between every building to get to the parking structures. The parking structure is totally camouflaged by the buildings. All these buildings are commercial use. There is no residential. Where the ones across the street that you approved at the last meeting were mixed use, true mixed, vertically integrated mixed use. There was retail on the ground floor and residential on the upper floor. All the buildings are designed in such a way that they have some similar features, but really they look independent and different. And the reason we did that was because we wanted the buildings to look like they were developed over time, you know, like it's a true downtown. The vision of this is like, you know, these just, even though the applicant's building everything at once, which is phenomenal to get it all built at once, is, I think, really going to be a great asset to our downtown. But it's going to look, when he's done, like it's just occurred over years and slowly, and it has that historic character to it. A lot of the plazas and public spaces in between the buildings, especially the ones that are on the roundabout are public plazas. They'll have fire pits and public access points, be able to eat outdoors. The ones across the street that you looked last month had some garage doors that were able to be opened, but not visible from the street, so people can spill out into these plazas. So we're really trying to create a public realm that people will really come down to downtown Crabapple and really spend the night, really walk around, enjoy. It was a difficult task because, I'll be honest, GDOT raised the road around 9 feet, which is quite a bit of extra work for Mr. Orkin to really overcome. I mean, initially when he was looking at this, that wasn't there. And then GDOT came in, and there were 2 beautiful old trees there that GDOT had basically just, I don't want to say killed, but they did. They killed those trees. And so his original plan was to keep those, and GDOT killed them. Our arborist said they're just not going to survive, and they're not making it. He wasn't happy about that, but he has reworked his whole plan to accommodate that. And we really put a lot into trying to camouflage the parking. We wanted a parking structure. We've been trying to encourage a parking structure for many years. I look back, it was like, I think in 2014, we were looking at this with Chris Lagerblum, who was our old city manager. He was trying to promote parking structures downtown, and quite frankly, it was very expensive for the city. The city was looking at trying to do one, and we just couldn't afford it to finance it and then to maintain it over time. And Orkin and Associates has stepped up and said, we'll put this parking structure in. It is open to the public, although it's his parking structure. There are no gates. It's open to the public. So I think he's really putting quite a bit into everything we've asked for from a staff perspective. I just want the board to know that he has integrated into this project. So
I think it looks great. The last time when you guys came before us, you didn't have lighting, and we asked for lighting. This is great lighting imagery, so thank you for that. That's perfect. The only thing that I would ask is the sort of storage building that's on the opposite side of Itasca. Yeah, that little building there. So when you come down to that intersection right now, you have to cross the double lane of that traffic that's coming pretty quick. Creating too much of a buffer right there could create somebody's line of sight as they're trying to pull across. Have you guys thought about that at all? Putting that building there along with some buffered greens in the island just could be a little bit dangerous.
Well, it could be if you're speeding, but if you stay the speed, then you should be fine.
I never speed.
And again, GDOT built you guys a ski slope coming down that hill. So
Yeah.
that hill, the way we had designed it for y'all years ago, was that road was about 6 to 9 feet lower, and it had a better feel to it. So if you're speeding, I could see, yes, it could be a problem. But if you're not speeding, then I wouldn't see it to be a problem.
So I just want to jump in a little bit, because what we're doing is GDOT did not give us any crosswalks on Heritage. So we have no perpendicular crosswalks on Heritage, but staff has designed crosswalks. They're raised crosswalks. So if you're speeding now, it will slow you down, absolutely. We did it in some of the neighborhoods that are back there in Brayburn and in those areas, so you can drive through and see it. And we're doing the same thing here. And that contract has already been awarded and is going to be probably in the next week or so, we'll be starting construction. So we are doing all those crosswalks. So we've done a plan for all of downtown for walkability and bicycle use and pathways, and Orkin Associates working very closely with us to integrate more pathways and walkways throughout downtown Crabapple. All the other developers that you saw in here, Strawberry Fields, the Beechams, and John Gaston, they're all doing and contributing towards their property, towards pathways and walkways. And we'll be very shortly coming up with a a plan on that and then showing it to you all once we get it done. We're also doing staff is working on getting a three-dimensional model of all of downtown. So everybody's giving us their models, and we're going to put them all together and then be able to show you all a three-dimensional walkthrough of downtown Crabapple. So that will look very nice. And the park that's on Mayfield Road, we're in the process of getting a professional rendering done for that as well, because that will be just another park. So this part here, Orkin Associates already built the park reflective of City Hall, so that's already there. So that was the first step that he did. The second step was he wanted to do several phases on his LDPs, but virtually he's really doing them all at once. So that's what you're seeing tonight. So you'll see the townhouses in the back. He's going to be doing the pads and getting them pad ready and all the LDP and infrastructure work. And then another builder will probably most likely step in to build that residential, which we haven't seen yet. But it would come before you because it would be townhouses. So that architecture would come. Sorry.
I'm sorry, and if you study it, we moved the building back a bit, Reed, so it sits back just a little bit. But this used to be a four-way stop.
Right.
And I really liked it as a four-way stop because it slows traffic down. And I'm hoping that when the city takes back over that road, they think about maybe a four-way stop again, because to me that felt more comfortable trying to cross that street.
Yeah, well, and the fact that it used to stop going one way and not the other way is just a little bit confusing.
It is.
So, you know.
It is.
It works better as a four-way, right?
It does. No, absolutely.
Or even a raised intersection, the whole thing raised, you know. Those work really well too, instead of just a crosswalk, the whole intersection raised.
Well, it's actually, I don't know, Bob, you may have talked about this. It's actually on our internal, if you go to Lacoma right back here, we have a brick paver crosswalk that slows people down because you hear the tires roll over it. And then y'all are actually we're putting in one of your stamped concrete, so it will have that same effect. Instead of painting it, you'll have a little bit of, when your tires roll over it, you'll tend to slow down a bit more than if it were just painted.
Are there any plans for crosswalks across Crabapple yet, though, from one side, from north to south?
Actually, Sarah Leaders, our interim Public Works Director, is working on that. She's designed it, and she thinks by the end of the summer we should have GDOT approval, because Crabapple Road is a GDOT road. Now, when they repaved it for us, we did narrow the lanes, and she's going to be proposing on-street parking along that road and a crosswalk. We don't have a Hawkeye yet, a hawk light going in there as of yet. But I think, because GDOT said the demand wasn't there, but we did do a crosswalk, a raised crosswalk. And then I think once all of this development is in place, the people are going to start coming. Then we'll call GDOT back in and say, here, now with the people downtown and look at the activity we have, redo your study, and hopefully we'll be able to get one of those in. Alpharetta got one in on there, so I think we have a good chance of getting one of those in.
Yeah, they got it a long time ago.
This project will definitely be worthy of Milton's heritage, and it will be great for the city. I had a small question. In signage, when you were going over Building J, what were you referring to? It'll enhance signage opportunities, if I remember correctly.
Sure. So at the gable end, it'll give an opportunity for the tenant that's in here to have a signage opportunity. The signage would be presented in a separate application. It's not included in this, but it gives ample room for any sort of signage that they would want to do.
Okay, so it would be an inducement to lease the property.
Right. So when we're looking at signage, staff is really looking at it twofold. One is we want the signage, we've asked for a master sign plan, which they've agreed to do, and that really will give us different opportunities to put in more historic style signs. Things that look like they're maybe potentially have that visual character of being a painted sign, although he says maybe they're not actually painted, it's more of a vinyl base, but it looks like a painted, de-stressed sign. And then, putting wood signs up and other signs that are similar in character to what he has now. The other thing that we're really looking for is the opportunity to put what I call placemaking signage in, which is signage that just says Downtown Historic Crabapple. It's not a tenant base. It has nothing to do with any of his retail or, any of his commercial base. It's just more of a placemaking kind of signage, something that when you come in, you see a sign that says Crabapple or Downtown Historic Crabapple. And the code doesn't really address that kind of signage. It really is geared towards a tenant-style sign, a building sign that is applicable to a specific kind of a tenant. It's not really, there is no code for just a general placemaking. And I really wanted to see some signs like that just say Crabapple on the roof of a building, that he originally showed us, like a small sign that would come across the roof of a building. So what I've asked is for that kind of placemaking signage to be looked at and explored. And Orkin and Associates is actually looking to step up and potentially work with us, and quite frankly, at his expense.
So can you see it right here?
To look at these
that's
kinds
great.
of signs.
That's a great idea.
And to see, like that Crabapple sign there, that would look like it's just there to indicate that you're in downtown Crabapple. And whether it says historic downtown, whatever maybe the council wants it to be, we would ask the council how they want me to brand it, or we could work with our communications department, how they want it branded, and we could brand it in such a way. But there's several options that we've been looking at that I'd like to bring to the board, and they potentially will need a variance because the code is silent on it and it doesn't address it. So we're going to have to go through our own process.
We've been looking at trying to find some old script of Crabapple. We can't find anything, so we've come up with a couple of ideas. The other signage that you'll see is like this building here. It's just really, really well done. Looks like it's been there forever, and I think it's going to give the area a really nice feel to it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bookend. You've got a really good opportunity to create some kind of iconic feature there, and I guess the silos is really the only symbol that Crabapple has right now, and
that's about all we found.
It's all we've got. I'd venture to say some people don't even know where Crabapple is. You say Crabapple, that could bleed into Roswell, so you do have an opportunity to leverage some branding done the right way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bob's idea was to put the big chicken in Cobb County here in the plaza, but we said maybe
or
not.
the big fish, the big fish over the fish. The big fish, something,
Yeah.
Something.
We could light it up at night. maybe it could move a little, give a little activity.
I'm sure we could do that. Yeah.
But I would like to explore this placemaking idea, and both Rob Beecham, who's doing Strawberry Fields, and Mr. Orkin are both open to looking at signage holistically, doing this together, putting some branding. We did the wayfinding signage that you're seeing already around the city, which is on the wood posts, and trying to help people get in and out and identify where things are, especially on foot when you're walking through the city. So it's something that I think it's very nice that the development community is willing to step up and say we're willing to participate in that and probably even help us maintain it. So I think we can get something out of that, and I think it'd make Crabapple very successful as a historic downtown.
It gives you a sense of arrival for sure.
Yeah, right.
I'm in a place that's very attractive.
I envision people coming down to Crabapple and just parking in one spot and just walking and just spending the whole day downtown, playing in the park with the kids and shopping and having eateries. And every tenant that is being looked at, I do want to give credit to Orkin and Associates. They're very particular about the type of tenant, who the tenant is, how does that tenant fit with other tenants, and everybody's looking holistically. They're all trying to work together to make sure we have a good variety and well-rounded type of tenant, more of a mom and pop type of shop, none of these national brands. Orkin and Associates, I will say, he builds, and he's basically it never really sells anything. I think he's going to be part of downtown Crabapple for as long as you can possibly be part of downtown Crabapple. These are not developers that are coming in, building things, and then throwing them on the market and flipping them. And I think that really says a lot, the way he helps work with staff's responses and what we need. We've been very demanding, and I do want to say that he's really stepped up and done everything and beyond, really, for what we've asked. So.
Any additional questions from the board? Are there any comments from the public? I would say we should go ahead and take a vote. If somebody would like to make a motion.
What are we on now?
I move to
Phase 3.
accept the Crabapple Marketplace 3 LDP and architecture.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hold on. We need a few votes here. I need phase 3.
We
need
have
the phase 1.
Phase 1. Now, which one's phase 1?
Phase 1 is the townhouse LDP.
Okay.
That's in the back. Those would
Okay.
be the townhouses. that are in the
Got
back.
it. All right.
So phase 1 will be, this was Will Stolz's old property that we had sold to Will at one point in time. We bought it back from Will. Will had 3 large buildings on the property, and we're just configuring these buildings into pad-ready townhomes for a developer. So there's already a circular road running through the property. There's already this circular road that runs through. There's already a landscape put up. And what else could I answer for you?
We've not seen, obviously, the look of these. This is just approval of the LDP. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yes, we aren't here for the architecture.
I
We're in
do
the
want to tell
process
the
of-
board that when Will had this previously approved on his LDP, he had flats, apartment flats, and he had a lot more density. And the adjoining property owners expressed a lot of concern at that time about the heights of the buildings and the amount of density and the fact that they were flats and they weren't individual townhomes. So when Orkin Associates purchased it, we worked with them to reduce the density, which this is representative of less density than what Will had. And it is individual townhomes. So it is conforming more to the public's desire on, I mean, both of them were as of right and they work, but I think this one definitely reflects a much tighter conformance to what the public was asking for at the time when Will did it.
I think I remember this. There was the courtyard in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
have a big courtyard in the middle.
And this one still stays with the courtyard in the middle here.
Okay.
We sort of do that because of the existing grade.
Yeah.
So the way the grade is, it's higher in the middle and then it drops to the sides.
So what are the average square foot on those townhomes?
I would say between 2,500 to 2,800 square feet.
And how many stories?
Basement, garage level. So the back side, the road drops down, so you're one level below. So here at the courtyard, you're 2 levels above. So if my front door fronts onto the courtyard, I'm 2 stories on this side. On this side, I'm 3 because I've got the basement.
Right, and before, with the Will Stoltz proposal, it was 3 stories on the green and then the basement downstairs. So it's really a 4-story architecture on the back when you visually see it.
Okay.
And that's why we cut this down. It's much more of a residential scale.
And it fits in with the current townhomes.
That are in the back.
On just up here on Heritage right here. This
Yeah,
6 or
okay.
7. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, the houses directly behind it, those are all single-family detached.
Okay.
It does sort of tower over those houses that sit kind of behind there, so, I mean, it's definitely going to help.
Yeah. And what you're seeing behind it is not actually the houses. You'll see those are all drive aisles in the back. You can almost see them if you look at the plan. So it's really wrapped by the rear access drive aisle. And then so the houses are further away. But overall, you don't want to look out, they didn't want to look out their window and see a 4-story architecture. And with that, when we had the opportunity to look at this again, we incorporated all those comments.
And is the architecture similar to the townhomes that are in back, or?
We haven't seen the architecture.
We're not sure yet.
Not there yet?
Right?
But I would tell you, it would be as good as any product that's down here. So it would be a quality residential developer building it.
Anything they propose, Laura, would have to come before this board.
Okay,
And it would be a local person too.
okay. Yeah, I was just trying to remember what the architecture on the original one, because it's been a while. I was just trying to think what, I somewhat remember what they
Yeah, I
had.
think the back was a little flatter and.
Yeah, it was.
Balconies and.
Yep.
So that, we're going to make sure we incorporate all those comments.
Yeah, I
that-
think I like the
adjoining
townhouse
property owners
idea
had
better
when we go
than
to do
the
these.
flats.
Yeah, I think these will look better and
Yeah.
much more in tune with the balance of the, what I call contextual zoning, the context of the adjoining properties. I think this will match more
Yeah,
in there.
I would agree.
And your intention is row house condominiums throughout this, throughout this?
14.
14, okay.
Is that right? 14.
What do you envision, Adam, with that middle piece there, the green space? Or are you just leaving that to
Right
the
here?
builder?
Well, it's going to be we envision a green space, so I would envision, one of my favorite spots is Villa Cristina. Have y'all ever been down to the Perimeter Market? So right across the street from Villa Cristina is a parking garage. On top of the garage is a very cool, very simple, well-done European garden that sits on top of the garage, where you have tree-lined streets, the sidewalk coming through here, just an open green space, benches, boxwoods, just very simple. But it's got that quiet elegance.
Nice. Any other questions? Any comments from the public? All right. Somebody would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Crabapple Market Phase 1, LDP.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I guess,
Just under old business.
yeah, we have, any new business for this evening? Anyone? And we have old business, and this would be Crabapple Market Phase 2 lighting plan on buildings.
And so just to remind the board, when you approved Phase 2 last month,
Yep.
I believe, Shelley, you asked for some lighting, and they've come back with some of the lighting, so we put it under old business just to show the board that. So anytime the board makes any recommendation, either staff or the applicant will ensure that those comments have been adhered to. So we wanted to bring it back in front of you.
Yeah, no, this just looks great. Yeah, all looks great.
And I was happy to see you have incorporated some of this in the new phase we did earlier tonight. So
Yeah.
we're seeing that same pattern flow through on lighting.
That looks really good. Yeah, I know the whole project looks wonderful. I mean, it's really come together very well. Very impressive.
And I want to say that all the lighting is in conformance with our night sky ordinance. So we do have a very rigid night sky ordinance, and all of this lighting is in compliance with that.
Great.
I'm probably ahead of schedule, but do we need a motion to do this, or we need the public, or does this need a motion, or is it just
Not really.
informative?
This was
previously
informational.
approved. I just wanted to bring
Yeah.
it back to make sure that the board saw it and
Right.
get the comments if it's good.
Yeah,
Because
it
it
looks
is following
great.
through the theme, as long as you're okay with it.
Yeah, the quality of the lighting is very nice. I saw Bebelo. That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Great job.
Unless there's anything else, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you.
Motion. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
evening.
Thank you, Adam.
Motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second it.
Thank you.